Mail-in ballots. He was fine with it.
Well, it was because his Republican strategists were panicking because they realized that they were going to lose without getting those mail-in ballots now. And I would imagine this time around, those same Republican strategists are also panicking because if he goes out there and starts to spread the word that mail-in ballots aren't going to work, this is going to be a real problem in the midterms.
Sam Seder from the Majority Report appeared as a guest on Abby Phillip's show on CNN, where he and Phillip challenged two pro-MAGA panelists over Donald Trump's controversial claim that he plans to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting. In this segment, we're going to watch key clips from that discussion featuring Seder, Phillip, and the rest of the panel, and I'll jump in along the way to share my analysis and reactions. Let's dive in and break it down together.
Tonight, Donald Trump plays a throwback, declaring that he'll lead a movement to eliminate mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place.
Mail-in ballots are not corrupt. Fraud rates in federal elections are tiny, and dozens of countries use mail-in voting, despite what Trump claims. So why is the president suddenly so amped up about this again? Well, apparently someone got in his ear. Someone with a history of fair elections and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to election integrity.
Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. And he said there's not a country in the world that uses it now.
Yes, Mr. President, he would know because you'll recall that Vladimir Putin changed Russia's constitution to remain in power. Many of his opponents are either dead or in prison or in exile. Russia is notorious for vote tampering, restrictions on monitors, and rampant voter intimidation. And yes, Russia has interfered with America's elections. But perhaps the most important point is that it's unclear what the administration could actually do to end mail-in voting, since that power belongs to the states. Just ask the Constitution. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is Sam Seder, host of the Majority Report. I don't know if President Trump forgot that he did this, but let me just play it. This is September 2024, about a year ago, when he said this to his own supporters.
You know that absentee ballots are about to go out in North Carolina? In other words, it's time to start thinking about let's vote. So important. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. So whether it's mail-in ballots, early voting, voting on the day, you got to get out and vote. We want to save our country. We're the only one going to save it. That other group of people, they're going to destroy our country. We can't let that happen. Go out and vote for Trump.
Mail-in ballots. He was fine with it.
Well, it was because his Republican strategists were panicking because they realized that they were going to lose without getting those mail-in ballots now. And I would imagine this time around, those same Republican strategists are also panicking because if he goes out there and starts to spread the word that mail-in ballots aren't going to work, this is going to be a real problem in the midterms for those Republicans, plus the fact that he has no authority to do this. I mean, he tried to pass he wrote up an executive order a couple of months ago to deal with the voting, and he got shot down by two different federal judges. So there's really there's no path for him here, and it's sort of fascinating that all it takes is one suggestion from Putin. I mean, what were they doing talking about 2020 during these meetings? Like, he's like a cat. It's like no object permanence here.
Where were the staff to remind the president that it's actually not true what he claimed, which is that the federal government let me just read it actually. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. That is not at all what the Constitution says. You know that because you're a conservative.
Abby,
Sam Seder is absolutely right in his argument here. Consider how frequently critics point out what they see as authoritarian tendencies in Donald Trump's rhetoric. They argue that instead of praising long-standing Democratic allies, like Canada or European democracies, he has at times spoken admiringly about strongman leaders, such as Vladimir Putin. From that perspective, the idea of suggesting U.S. elections should resemble those of an authoritarian system, one widely criticized for lacking free and fair elections, strikes critics as deeply troubling and hard to comprehend.
I agree with you. States have a huge role to play when it comes to elections. We also know that in 2020, as a result of the COVID pandemic, a lot of states went very aggressively in the direction of mail-in ballots.
Which they are entitled to do because they are in charge of the time, manner of the elections. They are in charge of that.
Even the U.S. Election Assistance Commission has studied mail-in ballots and said that there are a certain percentage, I believe like 500,000, that probably aren't ultimately delivered to their final destination. So I'd put this question to all of you. If you won the New York lottery, would you mail in your $1 million winning lotto ticket, or would you want to take it physically to the office to cash it in? I think if anybody wants to ensure that their vote is counted, the best way to do it. Well, then what about
that was a terrible analogy.
What about the Democrat Attorney General of New Jersey, who just an hour from here in Paterson, New Jersey, there was corruption and they're investigating voter fraud because there was a politician who used mail-in ballots to try to steal the election.
So voting is like I like the lottery. Let's talk about why that analogy was just terrible.
And critics often argue that many staunch supporters simply mirror whatever Donald Trump says at a given moment. From that perspective, if he were to reverse course and start praising mail-in voting as beneficial, they believe those same voices would quickly adopt that position as well. The criticism is that loyalty sometimes outweighs consistency, with supporters repeating his stance regardless of past statements. In that view, if mail-in ballots were framed as helping Republicans win elections, then those critics claim many of his most devoted backers would immediately support them without hesitation.
So, like, voting is a right and playing the lottery is a privilege, right? Those are two vastly different things. And the right means that you should make it free and fair. Everyone should have access to it. We should actually be trying to make voting as easy as possible so that we're more inclusive. Things like Oregon is what we should be talking about, where they have Tobias Reed and automatic voter registration. That's where we should be going with this, not necessarily trying to crack down on it. Yes, we want to eliminate voter fraud, but if we want to go back to 2020, and the great irony in this, and I haven't heard neither one of you all have said a bad thing about Vladimir Putin tonight. Neither one of you all. And Vladimir Putin is someone who literally has killed his enemies, has killed his political opponents, has pushed them off roofs and poisoned them and all of these things. And he is the one who said that this is something you should deal with. Right. And he went on Sean Hannity and
I did say, by the way, that I believe the first comment I made was that he was a tyrant and shouldn't be trusted.
You're drifting from...
You know what?
You're drifting with
I
Vladimir
give you
Putin.
credit. I was
this
really
talking about
about
Vladimir Putin. This is about voter fraud.
Say something bad about Vladimir Putin.
That is about voter fraud. But let's hear
not just
one
Paterson.
example.
I'm going to give you 5. In Paterson, New Jersey is the one.
Just 5?
No, more.
That's it?
I found a bunch.
How many votes are we
Sioux City, Iowa, North Carolina, 9, 2018, Appalachia, Virginia, 2006, Miami mayor was overturned in 97, Bridgeport, Connecticut was just overturned.
Okay.
Not every ballot.
So Joe, tell me where
not every ballot.
Tell me the degree to which mail-in voting fraud was enough to change the result of a presidential election. Where is that?
I can't pronounce the name. In Michigan,
in
Miami,
presidential election.
But not every election is about the presidential race. We also elect people at the state, federal, and local level.
But
the point I'm trying to make is
Trump
that
is making this statement
let me finish the point.
on his own experience.
Let me finish the point. Not every ballot mailed in is fraud, but it's almost always the case where you have fraudulent ballots. It's done not just by mail ballots, but paper ballots, absentee ballots. So if the president wants to secure ballot integrity in a better way, I am 100% for this. Now, you all, last segment, were so worried about the MAGA base and how they would react to troops on the ground.
Can I just ask a clarifying question of you, Joe? You said you're all for what the president wants to do, but he is saying he wants to he wants the president by decree to ban mail-in voting in this entire country. Are you for that?
No idea how he's going to do that.
Okay, are you for that? Because you just said that you're for what
I'm
he
willing
wants
to
to
wait
do.
for the executive order and see if
You
it's
just said
valid.
you're for what he wants to do.
If he figures out a way to meet the requirements of the court that struck it down previously, if he figures out a way to do it, I'm for it.
He can't, though.
If he can't, then he can't. But it's a thing that I would hope, and I've actually supported the New York State legislature in doing this. I would write a check to South Carolina legislature.
Let me ask you a
if they were
question. Are you in
supporting
favor? Are you in favor of when you turn 18, you're automatically registered to vote?
But you're acting like
Are you
mail-in.
in favor
But
of
you're
that,
acting
Chuck?
like
Are you in
mail-in.
favor
Hold
of
on. You're
that?
acting like mail-in ballots are something universal.
Critics frequently contend that some of Donald Trump's strongest supporters tend to echo whatever position he takes at a given time. From their standpoint, if he suddenly reversed himself and praised mail-in voting as effective or beneficial, they believe many of those same voices would shift right along with him. The argument is that loyalty can sometimes outweigh consistency, leading supporters to repeat his current stance regardless of what was said before. In that interpretation, if mail-in ballots were presented as helping Republicans win, critics say many devoted backers would quickly embrace them.
Trump was wrong. It wasn't one country. You were wrong, too. It's not dozens. It's 12. 12 countries on planet Earth have
that's
12
actually
have,
not. No,
12 have universal.
12 in Europe.
22 have other ways of getting it not universal. So that's 34. That's 15% of the countries on Earth.
Joe, we also don't have universal mail-in ballots. We don't have that. So
cases.
the idea that, listen, it's not 12, okay, but there are over 30 countries in the world that have mail-in and ballot voting, A. And B, to your point, Sam, Donald Trump is messing with something that his voters use, okay? 24% of Republicans used mail-in ballots in the 2024 election. That is a little bit down from 2020 when there was a pandemic, but it just goes to show that you then take those voters, some of them are in the villages in Florida, they're in Utah where they automatically send mail-in ballots to every registered voter.
Right.
Abby Phillip also raises what many consider an important point. A significant portion of Republican voters are older, and for some, getting to a polling place in person can be difficult. Others may have disabilities that make travel or long lines challenging, and military personnel stationed overseas often rely on mail-in ballots as their primary way to vote. From this perspective, critics argue that mail voting addresses real logistical needs rather than creating problems. They contend that Donald Trump sometimes frames such issues as major concerns, which supporters may then view as urgent even if they weren't widely seen as problems before. In that view, opponents say the focus ends up being on changing systems that already function rather than fixing genuine shortcomings.
The real story here, it seems to me, because you've got just a CNN poll out a month ago showed Democrats 75% more enthusiastic than Republicans at 50%. So if you're talking about getting to the election poll sites, the side that has more enthusiasm is a lot more likely to get there in the first place. This is Donald Trump worried about the midterm elections and trying to set up reasons why the Republicans are going to lose. I mean, this is a two-pronged thing. We're seeing it in terms of the redistricting, and then the other part is already start to build in the excuses. I mean, that's what's going on here, because he knows he's not going to get this past the federal judge.
There is a reason that the framers of the Constitution put this in the state's hands, right? And not so long ago, this is what the Republican Party platform in 2016 said. Federalism is a cornerstone of our constitutional system. Every violation of state sovereignty by federal officials is not merely a transgression of one unit of government against another. It is an assault on the liberties of individual Americans. Now, here we are in 2025, and Donald Trump is saying the states are just vessels to do what I want them to do.
The states are a laboratory of democracy. And
okay, that's not what he's saying. He's saying
I'll tell you what
the
I'm
states.
saying.
I'm asking you about what he is saying. He is saying the states are agents for what I want.
I don't know if that's the correct interpretation.
It's either right or
Abby,
wrong.
not.
Is it right or is it wrong?
That's absolutely what everything in our country right now is whatever Donald Trump wants it to be. At least that's what he's trying to do.
From this perspective, critics argue that much of the current political climate revolves around what Donald Trump wants or claims at a given moment, and they see his influence as shaping the direction of many supporters and allies. They point to what they view as an inconsistency in how some Republicans invoke states' rights, emphasizing it when it supports their position, but favoring federal authority when state decisions go against them. In that interpretation, Trump isn't guided by a fixed principle about states' rights so much as by whatever position benefits him politically at the time. Supporters of Sam Seder argue he's correct when he suggests Republicans may be worried about upcoming elections, and they question whether certain rhetoric is meant to prepare excuses for potential losses or to justify changes to voting rules. They point to ongoing debates about issues like gerrymandering and mail-in voting as examples of disputes over election access and fairness. That, on the other hand, Trump's defenders say their concerns are about election security and confidence in results, not suppression. The disagreement ultimately comes down to how people interpret the motives behind these policies. So, what do you think? Do you agree more with Abby Phillip and Seder's view on mail-in voting, or with Trump supporters who argue for tighter rules? Let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more discussions like this.